our webinar and our presentation. Today we're just going to talk, or I'm going to talk about an initiative that we're taking forward this year within Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board that we're calling Diversifying Health Board Supply Chains. First of all then, in terms of what's driving the initiative, so first thing is that we have got a desire to try and look beyond what you might call traditional procurement metrics, which tends to be historically around cost reduction, cost efficiencies and so on. And increasingly we're trying to look more into those wider societal benefits of procurement spend, and we're increasingly in the health boards having conversations with our public health and health improvement colleagues around that agenda and how we can connect with that in procurement. So we're sort of breaking out of that traditional sort of metrics, as I say, around financial and cost savings. The other thing that's driving it is that I've got legislative drivers. So we in Scotland, the public sector bodies are subject to the Procurement Reform Scotland Act, which 2014, which has some general duties around sustainability and supported businesses, and also some specific duties around community benefits. So the fact that we have that act and that it's, I think, unique to Scotland is also driving our thinking in this area as well. And the other thing is that it's driving it is a sort of local strategy drivers and a desire to know more about our SME base. We know who we spend our money with, which I'll come on to in some later slides. We know we're quite good at analysing our spend, analysing who we spend our money with, down into categories and subcategories and all that. But what we don't know too much about actually is who actually are the SMEs that are within in our case, our 6 local authority areas that NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde covers. And also as well, that part of the Procurement Reform Scotland Act that I mentioned requires us to have, or requires all public bodies to have an annual refreshed procurement strategy that has to be published on our external website. And because we've been refreshing the strategy, we are building in more into that about what we're trying to do around this agenda as well. And I suppose the last thing to say is just simply because we can, I feel that I'm in a privileged position as a head of procurement in a large public sector body to be able to drive this sort of agenda forward. So it's, in some respects, it's simply because I can do this and I'm in a position to do it, and I feel that it's incumbent on me to try and drive this forward. In terms of a background then, about what the project is about, what the initiative is about, the procurement departments at both NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde and also NHS Lanarkshire are, as I said before, we're increasingly making links with our public health and our health improvement teams around the role of procurement within that sort of community wealth building agenda. In Greater Glasgow and Clyde, there was an opportunity through what's called the Health Anchors Learning Network, HALN, to bid for a grant from the Health Foundation to take this initiative forward, and our bid was successful. And in that bid that we had, it involved us commissioning the Supplier Development Programme to utilise their expertise to help us engage with the SMEs that are within our area. NHS Lanarkshire that I mentioned, they're also taken that work forward through just the local funding stream that they have, and they've also commissioned the Supplier Development Programme to take forward a very similar agenda. And the reason I'm mentioning Lanarkshire here as well is that together Greater Glasgow and Clyde and Lanarkshire cover the 8 local authority areas that make up the Glasgow City region deal, which is the sort of economic strategy. And also together, the 2 boards represent approximately 40% of NHS Health Board spend in Scotland in terms of revenue budgets, and obviously that translates into supplier spend as well. So the 2 boards are basically Glasgow's the largest board and Lanarkshire is the third largest board, just behind Lothian. So by working together and trying to collaborate together, we do represent quite a large chunk of health board spend. The next slide here, possibly a little bit busy, but what this is an attempt to do is just show you in a table format how our trade spend with third-party suppliers breaks down. We spend approximately 650 million per annum with third-party suppliers in Greater Glasgow and Clyde. About a third of that is in the category of pharmaceuticals, which is perhaps not massively surprising. That category includes what we call secondary care drugs, which is drugs that are prescribed in acute hospitals. And it also covers things like the very big like home oxygen contracts. That doesn't include what we call primary care prescribing, which is when GPs prescribe. That's not regarded as part of our trade spend. And then some of the big categories that you're seeing in that table is, again, perhaps not surprisingly, medical devices and clinical consumables, medical equipment. We've got health and social care, which is a category which would be where it's usually contracts for services where an organisation provides services directly to the end client. We also have big spend on ICT or IT spend, utilities, estates and facilities and so on. That tends to be our sort of top categories. I've categorised this as well in terms of category A, B and C. Category A and B contracts are those that are tendered on a sort of national basis. Category A are tendered by either Scottish Procurement, which are part of the Scottish Government procurement team, or Crown Commercial Service, which are part of the UK Cabinet Office. And these tend to be for areas of spend that are universal to the entire public sector. So, for example, stationery contract, something like that, or utilities, for example. Category B contracts are those that are tendered on our behalf by an organisation called National Procurement, which are part of a national health board called National Services Scotland. And National Procurement do once for Scotland procurements for contracts that are specific to the health service. So, for example, national contracts for orthopaedic hips and knees, that sort of thing, that's tendered on a once for Scotland basis, where that spend is common amongst the health boards, but not common obviously to the rest of the public sector. And then what we have is category C spend, which is local health board contracts, where we are contracting ourselves as a health board, and we are doing that. We are running that tender process. So approximately 50% on average in a typical health board of your spend will be covered by category A and category B contracts that are tendered on our behalf by these other organisations, and we implement them. And then the other half tends to be contracts where we are contracting as an individual health board. And you can see some of those areas, as I mentioned there, some of the category C stuff would be like, so that health and social care category. I've got lab equipment and services, that's just because our big labs managed service contracts, a local contract. But other things that we've got taxis and patient transport, marketing and media, a lot of our estates spend will be category C contracts and things. So it's just getting across the concept that although it's a big spend, 650 million, that's approximately half of that is where we don't control the tendering process. It's done on our behalf by other organisations, but the other half is tendering activity that we control as a local health board. In terms of local spend, we've identified using that there's a spend analysis software that all the public sector bodies have called the Scottish Procurement Information Hub, and we upload our detailed spend data into that every year. And what that is able to do, it's able to categorise supplier spend in lots of different ways, but what it can do for us is tell us basically where a supplier is headquartered. And on that basis, what we've been able to determine is that around £77 million worth of our spend is spent with businesses that are headquartered in our 6 local authority areas, and that represents 12% of our overall trade spend. There is a flaw to that in the sense that you could have a supplier who's headquartered elsewhere in the UK but could still have a significant operational presence in one of our areas, but it's just, unfortunately, it's a limitation of the data set that we've got, but it gives us some kind of baseline, and the other thing to say is that, you know, it's 12%, and that might seem quite low, but I suppose when we think about going back to the categories of spend that we have, a third being pharmaceuticals, it tends to be global pharmaceutical companies that we're dealing with there. Medical devices and clinical consumables and medical equipment, again, it's a lot of it's global, big global medical supplies companies and medical equipment companies we're dealing with. So against that context, perhaps 12% is understandable to some degree, but obviously that's a percentage point that we would like to try and shift in a positive direction if we can through this initiative. The next slide here is on what I'm calling competing tensions, and I'm always quite keen to be quite upfront and open about this. On the one side of the little tug of war there, what we have is we have the NHS Scotland procurement strategy over the last, say, 15 years has been about increasing the coverage from our national procurement organisation and Scottish procurement and others to get that up to that kind of 50% level. And that was all about, you know, aggregation of the spend across Scotland to drive a sort of cost reduction strategy. The other thing that we have in the health boards is that we've got a centralised hospital logistics service. We've got national distribution centres, plural now, post-COVID. And what they're there to do is that where we have ward-based theatre type products that are used day in, day out in our hospital environments, we have a sort of modern logistics system, a sort of just-in-time, popping up service which replenished. We hold sort of 10 days worth of stock in our hospital sites, and all that kind of logistics is aggregated into a central logistics service. Now, these agendas that I'm describing here do run slightly counter, obviously, to the SME agenda, because it's about big scale aggregation. So that's just, it's just a fact of life. I'm not criticising that policy per se, but it's just to acknowledge that that has been the direction of travel over the last sort of 15 years. The other thing that's a tension on that side of the equation as well is that obviously for any local contracting where the procurements have a value of over £50,000, we are governed, as all the public sector are, by the external procurement regulations. So that's the Procurement Reform Scotland Act that I spoke about, and also the Public Contract Scotland regulations. And that does require us to expose these requirements to competition on an open, transparent and non-discriminatory way. And that sometimes can mean that that SMEs can find these formal procurement exercises challenging, and obviously that's what the work of the Supplier Development Programme is all about, and that's what this initiative is all about, to try and break down some of these barriers. So those things do as a tension in one direction. On the other side of the tug of war, if you like, is that we do have this desire to encourage SMEs and do more with supported businesses, and we are increasingly pulled in that direction, if you like, by these government policy ambitions, where governments of all stripes see procurement as a sort of lever in terms of trying to deliver sort of on policy objectives. And obviously that's something that's pushing in the other direction. And then just generally, we have this health board localism agenda that we're seeing in our procurement strategies, and the fact that we're making the links with public health, etc., and this desire around the sort of localism agenda. So, but I just think it's useful to sort of just point out that there are these sort of competing tensions, but despite that, I think, you know, what we're trying to do here is trying to sort of do what we can within that sort of context that we operate within. I won't read this slide out verbatim. It's just a little bit about the NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde procurement team. We've got about approximately 150 staff across our team. About half of them are actually what we call stores logistics staff who do that kind of ward-based replenishment activity. We've got a sort of central store, etc. We've got another 25% of our team then that are in a kind of transactional tactical part of our team, which is about the actual sort of purchase to pay process and the systems that underpin that. And then the other 25% deal with sort of commercial strategic procurement, which is like the implementing the stuff that comes out of our national procurement organisation and also taking forward the local tendering activity. We're split into sort of some commodity teams within that grouping, which I won't go into. There's names up there of our sort of who we are and who's the sort of senior team and the procurement team. But what I will say is that there's a link there on that slide which you'll have afterwards that takes you to our external web page, and we've just moved to a new web platform, so there's not a lot of information there at the moment. We're going to keep on building on that, but what there is some information that tells you a bit about the department, who we are. There's some contact details and on that sort of thing as well. The other thing I should just point out is that we have some devolved procurement areas within the Health Board. So our IT procurement is devolved and have their own little procurement team. We have a devolved area for capital planning, which is to do with large value complex construction projects. However, I am accountable as head of procurement to make sure that even the devolved areas still procure in accordance with Health Board policies and standard operating procedures that we lay down. And last slide from me is just sort of to say, what is our plan for 22-23? So our plan for both ourselves and our colleagues at NHS Lanarkshire over the next 12 months is to work with the Supplier Development Programme and their ability to reach out into the SME base and to hold us a series of supplier engagement sessions like this one to learn more about our SMEs, for us to understand if there are any barriers that in terms of our procurement processes that we have, which would prevent that's preventing more SME participation. One of the things that we're trying to do is look at our work plan that we have for the year ahead and identify where we think we might have procurements that might lend themselves more to the SME participation. So I think, I don't know, that we've got a few that we've identified on grounds maintenance, pest control services, and we've got one that's in the health and social care space about HIV, hepatitis C support services. These are three that we think might lend themselves to more SME participation. And what we're going to do is use the Supplier Development Programme resources to sort of put more of a spotlight and focus on them. And, we're obviously hopeful that ultimately the measure of success is that if we look back 12 months from now and we've done all these engagement sessions, that what we're obviously looking for is to see that high levels of SME participation in the tendering exercises that we have. And ultimately, I suppose the litmus test is can we shift that 12%? It's not going to be easy because a percentage point represents about £6.5 million worth of spend, but nonetheless, that's what we're going to try and do and see how we get on. So that's really it from me. I will now hand you over to my colleague Gillian Cameron from the Supplier Development Programme.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. That's excellent. So let's go to Gillian now and we'll share a presentation from Gillian, and then we will bring our other colleagues on to support the Q&A. So we've got Emma, Sarah and Emma supporting our Q&A. So Gillian, if I can ask you to hit the share button at the bottom. We've got a couple of questions coming in already for the Q&A, so it's going to be interesting. Please pop over the questions as soon as they come into your head. That's excellent, Jill. Thank you. Just need you to go from beginning.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gillian Cameron. I'm the Programme Manager at the Supplier Development Programme, and we're absolutely delighted to be working with Chris and his team at NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde. Hopefully many of you are aware of the Supplier Development Programme, and having signed up for this webinar through our website today, you maybe got an insight into how we work. SDP is very much at the heart of the power of procurement, which is part of the Scottish Government's National Performance Framework to look at how procurement can help businesses grow, how it's good for society, good for places, community, and open and connected. And through the power of procurement, the sustainable procurement duty, SDP is involved and helping share the good work that's been done out there in the public sector. And we demonstrate a consultation and engagement approach, and we look to try and involve as much as possible SMEs and third sector and supported businesses in the process. We try to link key tender opportunities to dedicated events, so you have access to key tender training. And we look to, as much as possible, to signpost up and coming opportunities pre and post tender, and looking at future tender requirements and identifying where next to go to. So just a bit of background, all 32 local authorities in Scotland are members of the Supplier Development Programme, which gives us a unique national view so we can help connect suppliers into a wide variety of contract opportunities. We also have a number of other members that are throughout the public sector, which are like government agencies, who themselves don't necessarily have like an economic development function, but who can then benefit from using our programme and connecting back into the local authority supply base. So it's a great opportunity to be able to work with all these different organisations on here. At the core of what we do in Scotland, there's £13.3 billion of Scottish spend. And what we really do at our heart is provide training and tender support on all aspects of public sector tendering. And we do this to improve the readiness of suppliers. And by raising the awareness of opportunities nice and early in the process, hopefully it gives you a better opportunity to be able to bid for these contracts. We connect the suppliers with the buyers through our key engagement events. And we also do the reverse of that. We connect the buyers out to the supply base when they're looking for particular suppliers. As part of our work as well is looking at some of the large major infrastructure projects and projects that are out there, such as the city deals and growth deals. There's a huge opportunity for suppliers to get involved in the supply chain and the subcontract opportunities, but even the awareness of these projects can help grow your business. We also work with the likes of Business Gateway, Skills Development Scotland and the other enterprise agencies out there to help connect you and support your business in a more holistic fashion. So what do we actually deliver for you as a supplier? Well, we're a free independent resource for tender support. We have a full range of tender training courses from the basics, looking at things like using Public Contracts Scotland and Public Contracts Scotland tender, how to fill in the SDP, the single procurement document, looking at topics that are in there regarding policy, such as Fair Work First, net zero. And we have a whole range of online services through our website, which has contacts with councils and indeed all the public bodies we're working for, including the NHS. We have a jargon buster, because procurement is full of jargon. So if you wanted to know what this acronym means, you can certainly pop into our jargon buster and look that up. We've recorded many online videos and guides throughout the years of us delivering our services. So you can visit our YouTube channel and find out some information about particular buyers, or you can look at some of the videos regarding our top tips for tendering. We host and run a series of Meet the Buyer types event. The next one's on the 15th of June, which allows you as a supplier to come along and meet the buyers, ask those all-important questions and find out what contract opportunities are coming up. You'll also hear from a range of speakers about particular topics such as net zero or Fair Work First. We host and run procurement workshops and also, as of today, like the Talking Tenders webinars, where you can hear about a particular organisation and how you can do business with them. Increasingly, we focus our training to align to particular contract opportunities. And as Chris mentioned, there's a couple of opportunities they've already identified where we will be running training alongside those contracts to help small businesses understand the process and to be able to bid better. We recently launched our e-learning modules, which provides you 24/7 on-demand access, and we have 5 different modules on there that are 15 minutes long that you can go in at your own leisure, log in, go through the actual tutorial, answer a few questions, and hopefully you will pass the module. We have a general help desk for general questions. Any clarifications that are in relation to a particular contract opportunity should go directly to the buyer through the normal channels, such as through PCS. But we have answered several questions on general topics, or maybe about finding out how you get in touch with certain organisations. And we see about 200 odd inquiries a month coming in there. We love promoting ourselves. We're very proactive in social media, and we have a monthly newsletter. So hopefully you've all signed up to the programme as well to find out what we're doing, what opportunities are coming up, and what training is available for you. And finally, we've it created a corporate membership for larger contractors. What we found was some of the tier 1 type contractors were very keen to open up the supply chain and to use SDP services to encourage small businesses to bid for their contracts and to find out about the opportunities with them. And so on that, we created a corporate membership and worked with 5 top tier contractors now to open up the supply chain and encourage small businesses to get involved. So are we any good? I mean, we can do all this work. Well, SDP like to monitor what we do, and when we're working with clients such as NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, we always run a survey, and you will get a survey link at the end of this to find out if this event was helpful. Did it help you understand about contracting with NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde? Did it give you the opportunity to ask questions? Last year, 93% of Scottish SMEs said they were more likely to bid for public sector contracts after attending our training in 2021. And that's great, and that's up from 88% in the previous year. And as you can see here, we've put on some comments that have come from some of our other talking tender sessions, where suppliers were able to find out more about the organisation they could work with. So how are we going to deliver with the NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde and also NHS Lanarkshire? Because this is a joint project, and there's a further session coming up with NHS Lanarkshire on the 15th of June. Well, we're going to help support them to identify a diverse range of suppliers. We're going to use our marketing channels and working with our networks throughout the local authority area to help encourage a range of businesses to find out more about how they can do business with the NHS. Like today, we're going to host webinars and workshops to connect and train a range of new and diverse suppliers. And we're going to provide a dedicated resource to help local suppliers build their bidding capabilities. I already mentioned that we'll be running some aligned tender training sessions, which will focus support on potential bidders with successful suppliers being tracked and analysing the data against the Public Contract Scotland. Because we want to know that when we've done some training, did it help and encourage you to bid? Did it encourage you to then go on and tender for that opportunity? And we want to know about your success stories. So if you win a contract, we want to focus on you and have you as a case study and really encourage you to work with us. We'll also help input into the procurement and community wealth building strategies and other documents to embed supplier tender support and project awareness going forward. Both NHS will be able to use our social media and marketing channels to raise awareness of tenders and projects with a Get Tender Ready message to build awareness and engage and prepare local suppliers for the up and coming opportunities. And we'll look at how we can consider if there's opportunities to work with some of the larger contractors to open up the supply chain to provide consistent reporting and connection to the supply base. NHS Lanarkshire will be tendering for the new Monklands Hospital replacement, which is a large infrastructure project, and that has opportunities for the supply chain and opportunities within the supply chain and for the businesses surrounding where this will be built to get involved, and more of that will be heard at our next webinar. So some dates for your diary. We have our virtual Meet the Buyer on the 15th of June, and we have another session talking tenders with NHS Lanarkshire at that event, and another session with NHS Greater Glasgow as well. So you have more opportunities to find out about opportunities. And if you want to look at some of our free tender training courses and some of the aligned tender training that we're already running, you can visit them at our website, stpscotland.co.uk. I do hope that little presentation was helpful on how SDP is here to help support you. We're very keen to engage with a whole range of suppliers and help you through this process and work with Chris and his team on supporting small businesses and how they can actually bid and tender for these types of contracts. Thank you.
Perfect, Gillian, thank you. Okay, so I think that's